This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Death by Southwest. It feels really weird to be doing this intro because we just recorded an intro, but it's going to be the bonus episode. So now we're saying hello again, and I'm going to read the... You know what? I'm not going to read the teaser because they get
you
it
said that like you go through this each, and in my head I'm like, you don't have to intro the fact that you're gonna read it or not read it. Just read it or don't.
Okay, fine. In this episode, we're going to dive into the harrowing 2011 massacre that shook the small town of Rancho, New Mexico. We'll unravel the chilling details of a late-night burglary that tragically turned deadly, and piece together the confessions, betrayals, and shocking revelations. You asked something in the last episode. You asked, I wonder...
Just one thing?
Yeah, right. You asked, you were wondering how they determine if prisoners are allowed to have visitors or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I briefly looked it up. I'm sure there's a much longer answer to this, but it's a multi-faceted answer. Is several factors. So each prison, which is what you said, I bet it's different for each prison, which it is. It can vary significantly, the kind of rules and policies regarding visitation. The behavior of the inmate. So if you're on your best behavior, then there's a good chance they could grant you visitation if you don't have it. And the inmate security classification,
So like severity of the crime committed, which determines your security level.
Right. Inmates convicted of violent or sexual crimes often face much stricter visitation rules. Health and safety concerns such as the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then also sometimes just it's administrative decisions. Like it's just the warden uses visitation as a disciplinary action or whatnot.
I also imagine and this could just be like on a smaller scale, like where people were supposed to be able to have visitation that week or month, but then a lot of employees are out sick or, they don't have enough staff to manage.
Yeah. And then I found this interesting sentence. Visitation is often seen as a crucial element for maintaining family connections and supporting the rehabilitation process. So decisions around visitation rights are significant for both inmates and their loved ones.
I bet that's true. And it makes me think, well, then that's an odd thing to also hold over their heads as disciplinary. But I get it without getting it.
Yeah, but you're already in prison. How many other things can they use as they can't keep food from you?
They can't.
I guess they could keep yard time.
Yeah, they could keep you
like
in isolation.
Yeah. Ugh, goodness. Okay, let's jump into today's story. So I'm going to tell you today about the Ortiz family. And, I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you just briefly, El Rancho, New Mexico. It's a tiny rural town where everybody really knows everybody. The population is approximately 1,100 people.
Oh, really small.
So really, really small. It's nestled in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, very close to the city of Santa Fe, which is a really cool city. Another notable feature of El Rancho is the Poi cliff dwellings, which are ancient ruins that were once home to ancestors of the present-day Santa Clara Pueblo people. So that is El Rancho, and that's where the Ortiz family resides. So the Ortiz family, the parents are Lloyd, who is 58 at the time when our story takes place in 2011. Dixie is 53. Stephen is 21. And Cherie is 35. And Angela, I don't know her age. I believe she is a little bit younger than Cherie.
So those are the 3 kids.
3 kids, yes. So this is according to Angela, Lloyd and Dixie were always really fantastic parents. They always accepted the kids for who they were, supported them, stood by their side. Lloyd and Dixie themselves seemed to have a very good marriage. They'd been married for 34 years. Lloyd was a popular tile contractor in town. Very hardworking, would get up, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, be working on his property, and then be working at his job well into the evening. Which 1,100 people, how many people need tile?
Well, I bet Santa Fe
Yeah,
and surround,
that's right.
it can be shipped anywhere even.
That's true. Dixie worked in a nursing home. She said that she didn't even think of it as a job. It was really more part of who she was. She was just a very nurturing and caring person. I can't even imagine. Working in a nursing home is a job that I would never want.
Or a palliative care unit, or a, what's the other word? A
hospice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Took me a minute too.
Or like a memory care home.
Yeah, I don't know. Any of it. All of it I feel like would be
saints.
so
I think
sad.
there's saints
Yeah.
who work there. I mean, and I know not all of them are saints, by the way.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah.
To really care about your job and be there. Yeah. Wow.
And keep a positive attitude. So in 1989, when Angela and Cherie were teenagers, Lloyd and Dixie decided to adopt a 7-month-old baby, and that was Stephen. So as a foster child, he was a shaken baby. So he had shaken baby syndrome from when he was fostered, when he was an infant. He was paralyzed on his left side, had cerebral palsy, and doctors told Lloyd and Dixie he may never walk and he may never talk.
Wow. But he was, if they adopted him when he was 7 months old, you said, so he was put into foster like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right
away. Yeah. Okay.
Cherie and Angela, the whole family, they all loved him so much, and they attribute that kind of love and Dixie's nurturing nature that it transformed him. He was a very happy baby kid. He did end up walking, talking, and he hit all the normal milestones. He just hit them a little bit later than other kids were. So very.
I wonder if he was still paralyzed or semi-paralyzed on the left-hand side or whichever.
I think that
it must have been better if he could walk.
Yeah, much better. He could walk. I think that there was some, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. He had a little bit of trouble walking. It wasn't like a clean, smooth gait, but, he was able to walk, which, amazing. Amazing family. So they lived on a big piece of property in El Rancho. 2/3 of the property was occupied by Lloyd and Dixie, and Stephen lived with them. And the other 1/3 was occupied by Cherie and her husband, Jesse, and their 2 kids, Catalina and Robert.
And where was Angela? Just wherever she was.
Yeah, she was
not living on the property.
Not living on the property, but I believe, and maybe not even in El Rancho, but she was nearby enough. The family was very close knit. They were all involved in the local church and well liked, and in a small town, everybody knew everything. So, knew everyone and everything. And yeah, they were well received in the town. So our story takes place Father's Day, 2011. The police received a panicked call. The caller says, please come quick. They're dead. They're all dead. My parents are dead. And that caller is 35-year-old Cherie Ortiz Diaz, actually. So police quickly arrived to the house and found an incredibly gruesome scene. They found a woman laying face down in her nightgown in the bedroom, deceased, with a lot of trauma on the right side of her temple. They believe it is Cherie, but the trauma is so severe it's tough to tell.
I thought Cherie called. No?
I'm sorry. Believe it's Cherie's 53-year-old mother, Dixie.
Gotcha.
Apologies.
Thank you for pausing.
That's right. They walked out. The police walked out and stepped into the kitchen, and they found a deceased male. This was the most gruesome part of the scene. there was many areas of trauma to the body. And I'm saying trauma to the body because they don't know exactly what caused it. Lots of blood, a lot of blood. This is the body of 21-year-old Stephen. And then in the backyard, they find another deceased male face down with a bunch of trauma to his upper torso and head region. And that is Lloyd, the father. So the ME is quickly called because there's so much blood and so many wounds on Lloyd, Dixie, and Stephen that they can't determine what killed them, like what happened. So the ME comes and says, it looks like bullet holes, but I honestly can't be sure. They didn't locate a gun. There were no shell casings. There were no footwear impressions, no bloody fingerprints. There seemed to be a real lack of physical evidence outside of the enormous amount of blood surrounding each of the bodies. Mm-hmm. So with such a gruesome crime scene, one of the officers said, this is typically either about love, money, or anger, but it's very personal in some way. When you see, first of all, 3 family members killed in such a violent way. And again, they don't know exactly how they were killed, but it wasn't one bullet to the wherever. So they're like immediately trying to figure out like what would be the motive. So Lloyd's wallet is on the counter, there's still money and credit cards in it. So they rule out a robbery. And
because you'd think if it was someone going in for a robbery that just wanted to arm themselves just in case, it would be a gun situation.
Right. And it might be.
Sure.
Emmy said this might be bullets. She can't determine it yet, she or he. So one of the police officers at the scene said, who would stand to gain something from killing these 3 people on Father's Day in their home?
I have a question. Mm-hmm. How old was Stephen in 2011?
21.
Okay, because I was going to say maybe they could, whoever they are, could something financial because he was adopted. He was no longer foster. They weren't getting foster care payments. Okay. Mm-mm. Go on.
Okay. So this question kind of guided their initial investigation. Like, what would someone have to gain? So they started by investigating the large property, and it was a very large property. I keep saying large property. You would think I have an actual, like, how many acres was it? How large? I don't. So they found a fenced off area. There was a lot of outdoor space. I did see that because I saw the property. They found a fenced off area. It was like completely fenced off. The yards were separated. They were fenced off. But within the fenced off area, I feel like I said fenced off a lot.
You did.
There was a, 6 foot by 6 foot, 5 foot by 5 foot, something like that. A small area that was kind of boxed in completely.
Like a fenced off area within a fenced off area.
Exactly. And they managed to get inside of that, and there were 17 marijuana plants growing in the yard. And so...
Yeah, I was just about to ask, what was on this large property? Did they have any animals or gardens? Or
Yeah, they did. They had plants, and I think...
Clearly.
Right. Yes, they did. So, that's a fair first kind of assumption to think the police were like, okay, well, there's some type of drug operation, or they, at the very least, know or interact with people who are involved with drugs, and that,
And a reminder,
people.
This is 2011, and I don't know the drug laws or the marijuana laws, I should say, in Texas today, but I'm guessing...
New Mexico.
Shit.
That's okay.
In New Mexico today, but 2011 was
Definitely.
13 years ago,
Yeah.
so things were not as readily legal in terms of marijuana.
No, definitely not. But they were somewhat legal, it turns out,
cool.
because when they started looking more into this, it turned out that the Ortizes had a medical marijuana license for Stephen and a license to grow weed to provide it specifically for Stephen. It was all done like above the law. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what that saying is.
Legally,
thank you. He had in recent years had 2 brain surgeries to alleviate pressure in his head, and he was prescribed medical marijuana to help with that. So even though it was being grown legally, police still were like, okay, fine, but maybe this still might have something to do with it. It's a small town.
Sure.
If people know that you're growing 17 marijuana plants, but the plants were still there, so nobody stole them if that was the goal.
Yeah.
Who knows? We don't know. That's still something that they're kind of keeping tucked in their belt as maybe it has something to do with it. So the police's suspicions grew in a different direction when they were informed about a few suspicious characters that Cherie and Jesse heard outside their home on the night of the murders. So Cherie told the police that, me and Jesse were watching a movie, and around 1:30 in the morning, the dogs started barking like crazy. So Jesse got up, he walked to the front window and then to the front of the house, maybe stepped outside on the porch. He saw a car parked outside and to the left of the property, a gray car. And he heard a kid yelling, saying, "Hurry up, come on." And Cherie said that Jesse grabbed his gun, got in his truck, and drove towards the car on the property, trying to chase it, and followed the vehicle, but the vehicle got away.
So was it actually he heard a kid? Like it sounded like a younger person voice. Okay.
Yes. So police are like, okay, fine. So they decide to talk to Jesse. And they're kind of surprised when Jesse's story does not really match up to what Cherie had said. He actually never mentions leaving the house at all that evening. So police say, "You never left the house." He says, "No." And police say, "Why would your wife say that you left the house?" And he said, "That I left the house? I don't know, maybe because I was outside or something." And the policeman says, "She heard you leave the house. Why would she say that?" He says, "I don't know." They continue to press him about this when he suddenly seems to remember something. He says, "You know what? I might have left the house when I seen the car parked. That's right. Actually, yes, I did leave the house." And the detective is like, "That's not something that you just forget about. What do you mean you forgot that you left the house? This wasn't years ago.
Right.
This was yesterday."
Huh.
So Jesse continues.
Unless he'd been drinking?
That's a possibility that I didn't see anything about that. So that's...
Well, we'll see if it pans out as that would even matter.
Right. So Jesse says, "Yes, I did leave. And I went and I got in my truck and I drove towards the dead end. And I passed by the car." And the policeman cuts him off and said, "Why would you not confront someone on your property?" And then the policeman says, "You're lying, bro. You're lying."
Wow.
Yeah, I actually heard this. So the police don't believe anything Jesse's saying now. Now they are like, okay, here's our first suspect because he's lying, which makes sense. Although this just came to me.
Or he's covering for someone.
Or maybe he really did forget because that's a traumatic event.
Well,
Maybe.
I don't know how it plays. I mean, I know people die, but I don't know how much Jesse saw or didn't see or was involved. So up
That's
into
true.
this, I thought that
That's
too,
true.
of trauma can make blank spaces.
Yeah.
And up until right now, he just heard someone out the home.
Right. That's true.
I also think if Jesse went outside, although he did now say he got in his car, but a part of me at first was thinking, okay, well, maybe he did go outside. His wife, Cherie, thought he did get in the car because she heard a car. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was someone else in a car. But
True. That's true. There are a lot of unknowns at this point. So police then bring him in and are really questioning him now. And they ask him about his relationship with his in-laws, with Lloyd and Dixie. And after that, what he says in response to that, they're pretty convinced they're on to something. So they discovered that there were some recent events that had caused a lot of tension between Lloyd and Jesse. Not too long ago, Lloyd had felt embarrassed about the way that Cherie and Jesse were keeping their property. And he, I guess, had asked them to take better care of your property. This looks bad on us. And, and he cared a lot for his side of the property, or his 2/3 of the property. And they didn't ever do anything about it. So he just built a fence between the two sections of property so that he didn't have to
demonstrate. Oh, so he didn't have to look at. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so that he didn't have to look at how messy their side was.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so police were like, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but who knows? Maybe the tension grew and it boiled over and resulted in some type of rage killing. So they asked Cherie and Jesse both to go over the timeline of events for the night of the murders. So they both said they were at the casino for a little while, and then they drove home and put in a movie. And they were able to account for their whereabouts in an almost minute-by-minute play-by-play for that entire day and night. So there was obviously more to it than the casino. We came home, we put on a movie. The cops thought, I guess it's not cops, it's investigators. The investigators found that kind of suspicious, actually, that they both could like really perfectly account like the times almost exactly that they were coming and going and doing things.
It sounds like let's corroborate and talk about it.
Yeah. So then they asked Cherie to recount her experience and what she observed finding the bodies. She says, I walked in and I called out, Mom. And then I walked into the bedroom and I walked over to shake her. This is a direct quote, by the way. So I'm going to start over. I walked in and I called out, Mom. Then I walked into the bedroom and walked over to shake her, and her fucking head was blown. And so I ran to the kitchen to check for my brother and Dad, and I thought it was my dad laying on the floor in his underwear because his face was so fucking blown off. And so I ran home screaming for my husband, and my husband went back over, and then he told me, honey, that's Steven in the kitchen. Your dad is dead in the backyard.
Whoa.
It's a weird, I found this quote really, really weird. Like,
well, I thought it was weird until, I guess, you're not saying like all the parts or they're not all out there, but when you said she walked in and said Mom, and then obviously came upon what we think is her mom,
right,
and shook her, I was thinking, all that, you said there's a ton of blood, so why would you shake? But I guess why, I mean, she's in shock, yeah.
Yeah, in that moment, I guess you
yeah, that makes sense.
No, yeah. I the only part I found strange about that was saying her fucking head was blown. His face was so fucking blown off. That just feels very aggressive to be talking about your mom and brother.
Like, how did you
just died?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, yes. Let me go back and forth.
I don't know, something about that saying blown. Her fucking head was blown.
To me, that indicates like a part of me could say like, well, how does she know it's a gun? And maybe it's not. Maybe that's just the language she used. I don't know.
Sure. So investigators were like, okay, this is a plausible story.
Why did she go over there? I mean, I know they live close, so maybe she just stopped by.
Yeah.
And it was after they were watching the movie, they heard the neighbor, or was this the next day?
This was the next day.
Got it.
So investigators said this is a plausible story, fine, but the only thing she couldn't explain to them was something that they found troubling about what she said on the 911 call. She said, they're dead. They have gunshot wounds to the head. They're dead, dead, dead. They've been dead since this morning. So she told police if she had gone over in the morning, she could have saved them. But police wanted to know, like, how would you know that? How would you know when this occurred? That because they had asked her about what she said on the 911 call, and she said, if I'd gone over in the morning, I could have saved them. And police were like, well, how do you know? Maybe they were killed last night. Maybe they were killed in the middle of the night. Like, how could you possibly know when the homicides occurred if police didn't even know this yet? Like that, they didn't have a time of death.
Did she have a response to that?
She did not.
Oh, wow.
So now they're not only suspicious of Jesse, they're also suspicious of Cherie. They take DNA from both of them and search their home. The next day, investigators get the autopsy results back. What Cherie had initially thought was the cause of death was not the cause of death.
Meaning, like,
not gunshot wounds.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The 911 call, she said more than just blown. She said they've been shot or what.
Yeah, she said their heads were blown in the interview.
Right. Okay.
So the cause of death was incorrect. They were all killed by impact trauma to the head caused by a pickaxe. And if you don't know what a pickaxe looks like, look it up.
Is it kind of like...
It is way worse than what I had imagined in my head at first.
Oh, okay.
I've seen it in person because Mark has one, but...
Watch out. Yeah, yep.
But the one that they show that they used was, I'd say, similar to this, but even larger because it was used on their property.
They're very heavy. So one hit, and it sounds like multiple.
Yes, Stephen had 17 blows to the head from the pickaxe. And what was determined from the autopsy is that they were all beaten long after they were already dead.
So that makes it seem, from everything I know, or just from doing this and hearing a lot of recounts of murders, when it's something like that, it's often like a crime of passion or a crime of knowing, at least. Like there's a connection. It's not just like Joe Schmo.
Yes, I was going to say that was the next sentence out of my mouth, that the amount of force was so extreme that this told investigators, like, this indicates it is very personal.
Or an indicator of a crime of passion, or maybe just like a crazed person. But I guess why would they do it to a stranger then? They'd take their craze out on someone maybe they knew.
No, I think that's a valid...
Or just like someone that wants to kill, like a thirst for killing. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm sure it is.
Of course. Think about like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah.
I mean, I guess he did kind of know a lot of the people, but yeah, I think there's plenty of murders that are just...
I want to kill.
I want to kill.
Or I don't like the way these people are living for whatever reason. I don't know them, but like...
Or I had a psychotic break, or, multiple different reasons. But... typically, something like this where you are really, it's like stabbing is considered very personal.
I mean, this is stabbing, basically. It's impassioned.
Impassioned, that's a good word.
Now, you said Stephen had been struck 17 times?
Yeah, in the head. I can't even imagine what that looks like.
Well, she mistook him for her dad.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean,
that's right.
I also... This is just a dumb connection, so you'll probably have to cut this. Didn't you also say there were 17 marijuana plants growing?
I did. That is really weird. All right, so they now know that they have to look for a pickaxe because of the autopsy report back. One of the officers luckily recalled seeing what he thought looked like a pickaxe in an adjacent field to the west of the property. Remember, this is a very rural place. So even though, yes, their property is pretty big, there's still no one close by. Like it is just lots of land around them. At the time, he didn't think anything of it because it's a farming tool. It's used for gardening and different things like that. I mean, among other things too, a pickaxe.
Well, sure. You said Mark has one. I think we have one.
Right. So a pickaxe in the field is nothing abnormal.
It's actually quite normal, I believe.
Right. And plus, they thought they were looking for a gun initially. Mm-hmm. So they retrieved the pickaxe exactly where the officer thought it was covered in blood, and they submitted it to the crime lab to test for DNA, hoping that the DNA would point towards some type of suspect.
Not just the blood of the victims, but fingerprints or maybe a little nick in blood from the person who was holding it.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean...
DNA from all three victims, but... What they did learn, what do you think okay, so no DNA, no fingerprints. Maybe it's a very personal crime. There's one other thing that they were able to kind of deduce from this pickaxe being the weapon.
If the person was a lefty or a righty?
Oh my God, that's a really good guess.
Okay, no.
I was not going to say that. I bet they could tell that from the wounds, perhaps. Although with a pickaxe, don't you really have to swing it with both hands, right?
That's true. Oh, well, that could be it. Now I know it's not that, but that if you were like a real, that would mean they're a lefty or a righty and really strong if they could do, okay. But
that's
not
it.
that. Oh.
It's the strong part.
Oh, so they didn't do it with two hands?
Well, it's just that whether you do it with one hand, two hands.
Oh, you have to be strong to go 17 times and then go to this. So maybe there's more than one person, I think.
Yeah, you have to be very strong, very fit. Yes, very angry, but a pickaxe is heavy. You're right.
Well, and to do 17 on one human.
Yep.
Okay.
So they now have to consider if Jesse or Cherie, because those are really their two only suspects right now, are they strong enough to commit this crime?
These crimes,
yeah. Sorry.
Well, I just mean like when we're talking about having to have the wherewithal, the strength, it's not just one person. Then you go to the next and the next.
Right. Which...
You'll get there.
Yeah, there's something that was confusing to me, but I'll get there. They also dug into their alibi, wanted to confirm that they were where they said. And surveillance footage at the casino did confirm that they were there at the time they said they were. They were able to pinpoint how long it would take for them to get home from the casino, and were they in their home at the time of the crime.
Could they confirm that?
I mean, there's no way
That part, I get the casino, but once they leave the casino and go home, maybe there weren't cameras at their home.
There were not cameras at their home, so there's no way to
confirm that. And that's the most important part, right?
Right.
Okay.
But it's not enough to make a case.
Sure.
So news of the crime is quickly spreading throughout the community. The community's on very high alert. This is an extremely unusual and heinous crime for the area. And it seemed like everyone had an opinion on who they thought might be guilty of the crime, but they didn't have anything to back up those opinions. So there was lots of opinions, lots of talk around town. Also, police implored the community to please come forward. They needed tips and help and anything that anybody might know, but nobody did. Nobody had anything that was concrete enough that was worth exploring further. So they decided to go back through their witness interviews. And this was a term that I looked up because to me, a witness interview means they witnessed the crime and there were no witnesses to this crime as of now.
So could it just be a quote unquote witness testimony? Is that what you said? Interview of someone who's in the area, lives close, could have maybe, I don't know, what is it?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that. So I was confused when I saw that because I thought, what witness interviews?
Right.
So witness interviews refers to the formal process where individuals provide statements or information. It does not necessarily imply that the person saw the crime. It can also mean, it can mean that someone who saw the crime, of course. It can mean a character witness, someone who can offer information about the character of the victims or someone who might be involved in the case. It can be specialists or professionals like expert witnesses who can provide technical or scientific information. And then there's just an other witnesses section to that where it's people who may possess relevant information about the circumstances, events leading up to it, events after it, the area it took place in.
Who maybe also witnessed something pertaining to the crime who didn't know they were a witness because they didn't know what was going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So these were all recorded. So they went back through all of them. And it turned out that Angela, so this is the other sister, had mentioned a name that they hadn't considered until now. And this is Nicholas Ortiz, who is strangely not related in any way. Same last name, but it's not related. He's a 16-year-old kid in the community, lived a little bit up the road. He was friends with Cherie's son. Angela said, I always had positive interactions with Nicholas. He was a sweet kid. But she did tell investigators that not too long ago, within the last year or two, Nicholas had been having some trouble at home. And Cherie, being the nurturing person she is, she offered to let him come stay with them for a while. She gave him his own room. He was really close with the family. He would spend time with next door at Lloyd and Dixie's. They treated him like their own grandson or son, depending on, Jesse, Cherie, Lloyd, and Dixie. They gave him money. They took him shopping. They took him everywhere he wanted to go. They bought him things. He had chores to do. Like, he really became...
He was part of the family.
Yeah, he really became part of the family. But
where were his parents, do we know?
Still down the road. He was just having trouble at home with them, and he didn't want to be there anymore.
Gotcha.
So he was staying with them for a while, I believe, like months, when Cherie and Jesse began to notice a few things. They caught Nicholas one day going through the drawers in their bedroom. On more than one occasion, they noticed small amounts of money and other little things either being moved around or being missing. And they thought, okay, well, we're going to give him some allowance for his chores because maybe that will help. He also wasn't just having trouble at home. He was having trouble at school. He came home one day and his face was completely beaten. And Cherie said, what happened? And he told her that he joined a gang with some other friends, and his initiation was to let them beat him up. So Cherie said she had an anti-gang talk with Nicholas, but this was just kind of, it was ongoing. Mm-hmm. But then something happened that really kind of was the last straw, and I'll save my comments on it. So one day Lloyd was working in the backyard, and Nicholas, unbeknownst to Lloyd, was hiding in the backyard. and he had jumped over the fence and was like hiding out in Lloyd and Dixie's backyard. And Lloyd is working, and suddenly Nicholas jumps out and tried to scare Lloyd. Lloyd was not amused. He was like, this is it. This is the last straw. It's time for you to go back home. Which to me is like the stealing, the gang stuff. But then he jumps out and tries to scare you. And I mean, how scary could it have been? Although maybe he just was like
maybe
so
he was just
fed up.
fed up. There's just been this and this and this, and
Yeah.
he was having a peaceful afternoon. Also,
Yeah.
I was thinking, well, you don't want to do that to like any older person. Maybe they have a heart condition.
Sure,
I'm
absolutely.
not saying Lloyd
Yeah.
did. Yeah, to me, it doesn't seem like that was the most egregious thing based
No.
on what you've shared. It
Clearly.
was just like camelback
Yep,
thing.
for sure. So Cherie told Nicholas, you know what, I think it's time for you to go back home, but you can take all the clothes that we bought you, take your furniture that we bought, like anything you want, take it. And they never really saw him again after that. So police bring him in for questioning, and they ask him if he knows anything that can help. He says, no, I only know what I've seen on the news. And I watched part of this interview. He was super calm, like very relaxed, did not seem guilty at all. Police asked him about like you were asked to leave Cherie and Jesse's house. So police asked him about how he was asked to leave Jesse and Cherie's house, like not stay there anymore. And Nick said Lloyd told him that he had fucked up his trust and that he was never to come near them or their property anymore. And Nick said, okay, he wasn't that upset about it. Like he did fuck up their trust. He said he did feel bad after being asked to leave. He felt bad about it, but he didn't know anything about the murders because if he did, he would have called the police right away. I mean, when I say this kid is believable, like I've watched now a ton of these.
He showed remorse.
He showed remorse. He
was chill.
Yeah. I mean, really. So they asked him where he was the night of the murders. And he says he was home with his sisters and father. And that he even woke up and woke his father up a little bit after midnight to wish him a happy Father's Day. And then went back to bed. And he was there when his mom got off work and came home around 7:30 a.m. His entire family, mother, father, sisters, corroborated this. And police also spoke to the local pastor, neighbors, friends, teachers. He did have a little trouble at school, but for the most part was a really good kid, well-behaved, kind, caring, helped out at church all the time. So he had a pretty solid alibi. And with so many character witnesses, they were like, fine.
Yeah, there's nothing really there. He was just became kind of a nuisance or a stressor to this Ortiz family.
So 2 days later, the police get a frantic call from Cherie. She told them, she said, I found out about a safe that was well hidden. So well hidden that myself and my sister didn't even know about it. Cherie's uncle had called after he found out about the murders and said, I built your dad a piece of furniture that had a secret safe built into it and hidden within the furniture. It was so well concealed that the police hadn't even found it when they searched the house. So Cherie said, okay, I have to call the police. I don't even want to go look for the safe until they're here, which was smart of her.
Yep.
So she called the police. The police came. She told them where her uncle had said this safe is, built into this like table thing. They came, they got the safe open, and inside they found $80,000 in cash and some life insurance papers. Cherie and Angela were shocked. I mean, like her family, the family had never, not been able to feed themselves, but they certainly didn't have a lot of money.
That would have been helpful.
So they were shocked to discover that their parents had been saving money apparently for years. Cherie claimed that she had no knowledge of this safe, the cash, or the life insurance papers. Through district court paperwork that they were able to find, that the power of attorney had been given to Cherie, and she was basically going to be the heir to hundreds of thousands of dollars in life insurance policies. She said, I have no idea about this.
I'm certain you, I don't mean this rudely, I'm certain you don't have the answer, but when you become someone's, what's it called again?
Power of attorney.
Power of attorney. I thought you have to sign or be witness.
I believe you do.
So either she's not or she did know, if that's true. Again, we got to check that out, but.
Yeah. So police said, we don't know if we can believe her because this is a powerful motive.
Sure.
They were also curious about how a tile worker and a nursing home worker had amassed so much money.
Marijuana?
That's the first thing they said, was it related to the weed on their property. So now they're back around at the first thing that they thought might be tied to these murders.
But 17 plants, unless they had a bunch of plants somewhere else or like had done it for years, I just don't.
And that's exactly what they did try to dig deeper into this, into whether Lloyd was involved with drug sales or trafficking or anything. And it was basically a resounding no, because the plants were not like gigantic plants. There was only 17 of them.
But $80,000,
feasible.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
Let's go back to student loan talk. It's a lot of money. Also, I get their life insurance policies would have paid out hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
80,000, it's a lot of money. And also, it's not astronomical. Maybe someone in their, Lloyd or Dixie's family died and left them money. Maybe they won the lottery in their 20. There could be so many things.
So many things that it could be. It doesn't have to be from like a nefarious thing.
Right.
So as days turn into weeks, police are running out of leads, and they are really no closer to finding a suspect. They've cleared Cherie and Jesse. They've cleared this Nicholas kid. They're out of ideas, and there's not a lot of tips. And I mean, geez, there's 1,100 people in this town. Like, you could interview all of them in a week.
And by clear, I think at least with Cherie and Jesse, they were at the casino, but like.
Well, I guess that's right.
Clear, there's not enough evidence to book them or to charge them or to further question them.
Right.
So maybe not cleared.
That's what I should have said. I should not have said cleared.
But maybe it's the same thing for right now.
They're not.
That's it. They're
not
at a roadblock.
Right. There's not enough to arrest them or to bring them in. Angela called the police station every single day asking, what can I do to help? What can I do? There's got to be something I can do. Nothing. Months and months go by. 16 months to be exact. When the break that police were waiting for but never thought was actually going to happen happened. They received a call from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department. They were informed that there was someone in jail there that wanted to get something off her chest and share with the El Rancho authorities. This person's name was Ashley Roybal. She had a history of burglaries and drug use. And she told the police, I know something about the El Rancho murders from over a year ago. So police looked into her background a little bit before speaking with her. All they got from the phone call from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department was that, like, she had a history of burglaries and drug use. She was in and out of detention centers her entire youth. But she wasn't considered like mentally troubled. She was very bright and smart, but she just kind of was always in the wrong place at the wrong time, always making kind of poor decisions. So they sit down with Ashley and they explain to her that this is a voluntary interview. You don't need to, they're reading her all of these kind of her rights and all that, not her actual when you're arrested rights, but like,
as in essentially. You don't have to speak to us.
Yeah.
You're here. You could walk out.
You're here of your own free will.
You could walk out back to prison.
Yep. And she keeps interrupting them and saying, I know who did it. I know who did it. She claimed that on the night of the murder, she was smoking weed with her cousin, Jose, and one of his friends. She says that Jose and his friend needed money, so they talked about robbing the Ortiz house. It was just right up the road. She says that she drove the boys there, dropped them off on the property in her gray 1997 Saturn sedan, and then she went back to her home. She says about 30 to 45 minutes later, she got a call from Jose's friend saying that he needed a ride. When she went back to pick him up, he got in the car and he had blood on his pants. He had a trash bag tied around his right foot, and he almost immediately told her that he killed Stephen, Dixie, and Lloyd and threw the pickaxe by the fence on the property. He kept telling her, I really messed up. I killed them. And she said that there's no evidence because he had also socks on his hands and trash bags. He had them apparently on both feet when he committed it.
Okay, I was just writing down, like, why just on the right foot?
Yeah.
He was covering all his extremities with some sort of something.
Yes. So who was this friend?
Friend.
This friend was Nicholas Ortiz.
Oh.
Police were shocked. I mean, they interviewed him multiple times right after the murders. His alibi checked out. His character checked out. They didn't understand. So they wanted to, corroborate this accusation before doing anything else. They didn't want to even talk to Nicholas yet. So they asked her, like, can we search your car? We were hoping to find some evidence. I mean, what evidence, first of all, are you going to find after over a year? But her car, she sold it to a tow company months ago, and it ended up like in the shredder compressor. It was gone. So they were trying to think of another way to verify her story. And they dug into the phone logs. They had looked at the phone logs before for Lloyd, Dixie, all of them. Didn't see anything weird or that stood out.
Did they never look into Nicholas' phone log?
No, because his alibi it checked out right away. And so they started, and they never knew about this Ashley or Jose.
Sure.
Right. So they dug into the phone logs and found that the communication between Ashley, her cousin, and Nicholas peaked right around the time of the murders. So they brought Nicholas in. Nicholas still denies everything. He said, with all due respect to you guys, I'd like to really stop talking and go home. I saw that interview, which to me was like such a weird, like, no, you can't. But
well, at this point, could he not?
At this point, he could. And detectives chose to let him go home because they wanted to try and collect more evidence to confirm this and then bring him in again.
Sure.
So they said, okay. So they let him go. Then they brought in Jose for questioning. He was 15 years old at the time of the murders.
Wow.
So they got permission from his parents to interview him. Jose said that Ashley dropped them off at the Ortiz house, and after she left, Nicholas wanted him to enter the house with him and commit murders. I said no, I didn't want to do it. I was scared. As soon as Nicholas started walking towards the house, I ran away to the river. I eventually got back to my house, and later Ashley and Nick show up, and Nick was white as a ghost, and he told me he did it.
Why okay, I don't mean why. I know there's not always a clear-cut explanation, but let's go burglarize or steal from the Ortiz home.
Yeah, why did it escalate to murder quickly?
Well, maybe Lloyd fought back, maybe something there.
You got to really, but like...
They didn't even know what they had in the home, right? I mean...
Well, he
did.
Nicholas
had been there, yeah.
He did a little bit. But, I mean, you're somewhat planning that out. If you have socks on your hands and trash bags on your feet and you're using a pickaxe...
So you're willing to murder for whatever you can take from them.
Right. But I still don't understand why.
What did they take also?
So on February 12th, 2015,
4 years later.
So Jose's story matched Ashley's almost exactly. So now they have 2 witnesses against Nicholas. That's enough. So yes, February 12th, 2015, years later. It's crazy to me. The DA finally approved an arrest warrant for Nick Ortiz.
Who was now, 20 or something? Because he was 16 at the time? 4 years later?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So they brought him in, but he was still uncooperative. They explained that there are 5 total charges on this criminal complaint, on this arrest warrant. And Nicholas said, they read them. They read the 5 total charges to him. And he said, I don't agree with 2 of those charges on there. Well, there's only 2 charges on there that aren't murder.
And those are the ones he didn't agree with?
That's what he said.
Well, maybe he didn't want extra shit on his record.
To the police, this was basically like admitting it.
All right.
Yeah.
And also, yes. No, and also, yes.
Yes. So police informed Cherie and Angela that it was Nicholas. They were both like completely shocked. This wasn't his personality. The community was shocked. It was not what anyone expected.
Well, also, Lloyd and Dixie willingly and lovingly, it sounds like,
welcomed him.
Right.
Yeah, so did Cherie and Jesse. Like, he was family. So June 15th, 2015, Nicholas goes to trial. He was a minor at the time of the crime, but because it was such a heinous triple homicide, the judge agrees to try him as an adult.
But also at this... Oh, okay, because even though it's 4 years later, you typically try at the time, the age... Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So Jose and Ashley have agreed to take plea bargains for their involvement. And the prosecution is really confident that this will be like an open and shut case. That is until the trial starts and an unexpected development threatened to jeopardize everything. In the middle of the trial, Jose completely changed his testimony. And that testimony, this new account, pointed to Ashley as the person who instructed them to kill the family, not just rob them. Jose claims that Ashley said, "Why don't you just kill them?" A classic case of he said, she said now. Because Ashley said, "I never said that." But Jose is adamant that she did.
Because ultimately, even if we know, they know, whoever, that Nicholas was the one that did the killing, it does matter. This part does matter.
Yeah, it does matter. Jose says that after... Jose testified that she gave both of the boys socks to cover up their hands and plastic bags to cover up their feet, and that she handed Nick the pickaxe.
Okay, I have a thought. Yes. Because you had said, yeah, if you're going in with trash bags on your toes or feet and socks on your hands, it seems pretty premeditated, right?
Yeah.
It does. Also, could just be, let's be extra careful when we're going to try and rob them of whatever they have. Let's not leave our fingerprints or footprints.
Outside of the pickaxe, yes.
Well, yeah, I know. I left that out.
So Jose says that after Ashley dropped them off, he ran away to the river. He kept that part of his story in. But Nick walked up to the house and knocked on the door. Lloyd answered and opened the door when he was immediately attacked by Nick with the pickaxe, which only makes sense to me if like that happened at the front door and he didn't kill him yet. So he made it towards the backyard at least. He made it back.
Because he was found in the backyard.
Yeah, he was found in the backyard. And I mean, one blow to the head is enough to kill you. But if it doesn't, then I'd imagine you're pretty disoriented.
For sure.
Right.
Also, I still want to know, and I get you may get there, or maybe not, because some things are unknown, but like, were they truly going there to rob them, burglarize them?
Jose and Nick say that they thought they were. Ashley says that they were, but Jose and Nick are now saying, well, Jose is now saying that Ashley always had the intention of murder.
Right. Okay. I guess I'm wondering, like, if, let's say that was the true thing, why? Is there a... Okay. Her hand went up like, who knows?
Who knows? So Lloyd opened the door. He was immediately attacked by Nick. Nick then went into the house, struck Dixie twice in the temple, went to the kitchen looking for money, but came upon Stephen instead. Stephen recognized Nick right away and tried to fight him and lost, obviously, that fight. And at that point, after 17 blows to Stephen's head, Nick was too scared to stick around and do anything. So he left the home, never took anything, didn't rob anything, and called Ashley. So Nick is not testifying in his own, he's not giving any statements. We hear not a word from him during his entire trial. So now it really is just Ashley's word against Jose's word. That's what it's basically based on. There's no DNA evidence. There's no fingerprints. They can't confirm. For all they know, I mean, Ashley could have done it. Mm-hmm. You know, like they can't confirm who actually did it. They only have these stories.
They essentially know it's one of these people.
Right. So the case, this was troubling for the jury, and the jury was unable to reach a conclusion. The judge was forced to declare a mistrial. Luckily, the DA had the chance to try Nicholas again 17 months later in December 2016, and this time they did convince the jury of his guilt. Yeah. Whoa, Jenna just showed me. She wrote the number 17 down.
17 pot plants, 17 blows to the head, and 17 months later. I'm not saying there's anything
That's
there.
odd.
I'm just trying to remember 17 right now.
Wow.
Just for something. There's something out there about 17.
Wow.
Sorry, you can cut that. But
no, I'm not going to cut
odd?
that. That's really odd, and I love.
And what an odd number.
17
It's not
months
5.
later.
It's not 10. It's not 12 months. Huh.
Yeah, like why didn't I write down a year and 5 months?
Because it's 17.
That's really strange.
Right?
I'm going to go buy a scratcher ticket.
Hopefully, well, can you request it? Only if you can request number 17, right?
On October 28th, 2019, Nick was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count each of aggravated burglary with a deadly weapon and conspiracy to commit aggravated burglary with a deadly weapon. And he was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
That's it.
That's.
I mean, that's a long time, but that doesn't seem like a long time.
That's ridiculous.
For 3 humans? Or 1 human, I should say. Even just 1.
Right. Do you remember the story that we did last week where those 3 men,
years,
75 years.
That seemed kind of appropriate, as awful as it is.
They murdered 1 person.
Right.
He murdered 3 people.
And 1 person didn't even actually do the... Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yep. So...
25 years.
Yeah. The family was very upset. Cherie and Angela were very upset about this.
So this was in 2019.
Yeah. So what that comes down to is essentially each victim. This is, I think, something Angela said. Essentially, each victim is only worth 8 years in prison. And realistically, he'll probably do 12 to 15. Ashley pled guilty to conspiracy to commit aggravated burglary and tampering with evidence, and she received a 20-year sentence. 6 years of it was suspended for some reason. I couldn't find out why, so she really only went away for 14 years. And Jose got full immunity and got no sentence, not even probation. Nothing. Walked away from it clean.
Whoa.
Which, I mean, if he's telling the truth, I get that. He didn't even go in the house. Sure. He didn't do anything.
But it's an if, and that's the thing. Everyone's on an if here.
It's a
Everyone,
big if.
Besides those 3, I guess, and the victims know the truth.
Yep. Nicholas has tried to appeal this several times. That hasn't happened. They are sticking to their verdict.
Well, even if he serves his whole time, he'll be out in 20 years.
Right. I mean, and
it's
so
20. He'll get out in 2044.
He was born in 1989, so he's 34 right now. And at the time that
he'll be 54.
Yeah.
If he's 34 right now.
I can't do that fast math.
Well, if he's 34 right now, we're in 2024. He's getting out in 20. If he
20
serves
years.
the full time, yeah. So he'll be 54.
If he gets out early, he'll be 44 possibly. Either way,
he'll be alive if he wants to be, I guess, or
and
if
have
he doesn't.
And have a lot of life left to live, which I understand why. When I say it that way, I understand why people think like, well, he was only 16, so he should get a chance to live his life. But I mean, this was like a really heinous, and nobody can ever explain why. To rob them, and then maybe Ashley did tell him to kill them, but why? Again, maybe he went in to rob them and got scared because they were home. But no, because he had socks on his hands and trash bags on his feet.
Which again, I will say, besides bringing the pickaxe,
right.
Which could have just been, let's back ourselves up just in case, which still shows some sort of quote unquote secondary intent.
Sure.
But maybe they were just trying to be real safe and not show any fingerprints or footprints. Still, ultimately,
this was premeditated somehow by someone, in my opinion. I tend to believe that it was Ashley. I don't know why. I don't even know the girl, and I really didn't.
Clearly, I hope not.
Much. I really didn't see that much interview with her.
Why do you think it's her then? Something just doesn't add up, or
actually, I don't know, because I'm just thinking, like, Jose was 15. I could see wanting to like get some money, and like Nicholas being like, well, I used to live over there. We could rob them.
Plenty of people, plenty of teens want to get money or get jewelry or get blah, blah, blah.
And they don't burglarize a home, let alone murder.
If they get caught or something turns
like sorry.
I was also thinking maybe Lloyd when he opened the door, maybe he had a gun right by him.
Maybe he said something to Nicholas, like, I told you to never come near our property again.
Right. And also, still, even if that happened,
none of that matters.
I think ultimately, yeah.
Even if Ashley told them to do it, like,
right. I mean, it's a factor, but it's still
not a big factor in my mind.
People can tell me
to do.
And again,
things.
I'm a full-grown adult, but
16. If someone told me to break into someone's house and murder them, I certainly would not have done it, no matter what. So that
it's unfortunate is what it is, because even if his brain, whoever was the real person pushing all this, or all three of them were, or none of them were, and they just got caught up, it's still really unfortunate, because
it's very tragic. But I think the biggest remaining question is still the why. I mean, it is still the why. It doesn't matter if it was Ashley who said it. It doesn't matter if it was Nicholas who came up with the idea.
Well,
Jose seems to be not really involved.
To get money or jewelry or cash.
I just don't buy that. Like, this was so
that's
violent.
What you had said. Well, at first when we were talking about it must have been a crime of passion.
Yeah.
Which, again, it doesn't always have to be romantic passion. And Nicholas knew this family, and they were his family for many months. So that could be a part of the quote-unquote crime of passion.
Sure.
So I wrote that crime of passion. What would someone have to gain or cover up? But who knows? Maybe it was nothing, and it all turned terribly wrong.
You know what was interesting? That I thought the hidden safe was one of the most interesting pieces to this story, and it amounted to nothing. It never had anything to do with anything, unless...
Well, it did, and they just didn't get the money.
Yeah, or at the time that Nicholas was there, he somehow found out about that.
Undoubtedly. I think that.
And then wasn't able to get to it. He was too scared after he just murdered 3 people.
Sure. Oh, I didn't even get, in my mind, to the part where maybe he had opened the safe and seen all the fucking money in there.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that happened.
He just saw a safe and thought, ding, ding.
No, I just think when he was living there, maybe he heard something about it. Maybe he saw them put something in it.
Yeah, he saw the safe.
And that stuck in his mind.
Sure.
So after he was kicked out, living on his own for months and months, then when they're talking about robbing someone, that pops up in his head. And he's like, hey, I think we get that. And now that does become $80,000 in cash to a 16-year-old. Plus he has a little hurt feelings from being kicked out of their home. I don't know.
To a 16-year-old.
Well, to me, I mean, $80,000 to me, I can
there
pay
it
off
is.
my student loans.
Let's come full circle. Also, not all safes have $80,000.
That's very true.
I have Pilot's baby teeth in my safe. I do. It's like the most valuable thing to me, my passport.
That's really funny.
Oh, it's really awful. Either which way, yes, they were young people, that whether they intended to or not, and it's awful. And also, well, fuck.
It's awful for them, but it's really awful for
that's what I mean.
Lloyd, Dixie, and Steven, who seem to be like the most wholesome, lovely, wonderful family. And it's just, it's extremely tragic and heartbreaking. And, yeah.
Interesting.
We'll leave it at that. And say thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Good night and good luck.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Death by Southwest is hosted by Jenna Schneider and Margot Carmichael.
Executive produced by Margot Carmichael.
Produced by Jenna Schneider.
Audio editing and sound design by Margot Carmichael.
Music by Soundstripe.
And a special thanks to Edward R. Murrow for letting us borrow his famous sign-off phrase, good night and good luck.